The scarf was what gave her away. Not texts, not lipstick on collars or missed calls at midnight. Just a scarf. Light gray, almost silver in the morning sun. Naomi never wore gray, said it made her look washed out. But there it was, draped casually over the woven chair on the deck, like it belonged there. It didn't. I hadn't been to the beach house in over a month. We bought it. Well, I bought it, as a getaway for both of us. But somehow, she made it hers. Her sanctuary. Her space. I wasn't invited anymore. Not really. But I still had the keys. And when I got the email about an unexpected power usage spike from the smart meter, I knew something was off. She said she was at a yoga retreat in upstate Vermont. That was 3 days ago. Vermont doesn't spike the air conditioning in an oceanfront beach house. So I drove 5 hours through fog and second thoughts and parked 2 blocks away. Walked barefoot down the sand path. Let myself in through the back door, the one she never locks. It smelled like sunscreen and red wine. And that scarf. I stood still in the hallway, just breathing. Then I heard it. 2 wine glasses clinked. A man's voice. Muffled. Confident. Then hers. Laughing. That too sweet, high-pitched version she only used when she wanted something. They were here. She brought him here. To the house I mortgaged part of my life for. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I just stepped into the living room and looked around. Everything was too clean. The sofa fluffed. The wine chilled. Candles lit. She was preparing this. But she didn't prepare for me. I walked upstairs, silent as guilt, and waited behind the master bedroom door. 10 minutes later, the front door opened again. She was still laughing. But the laugh stopped the moment I spoke. Naomi, I said quietly, you forgot your scarf. She gasped. But Levi didn't. He froze. Because standing behind me was his wife. And neither of them knew that we'd been texting for weeks. Naomi didn't move. She didn't blink. She didn't even drop her purse. She just stood there in the doorway, paralyzed, like a deer who saw the headlights too late. Levi, though? Levi wasn't paralyzed. He was calculating. I could see it all over his stupid, angular face. His eyes flicked from me to the woman standing behind me, his wife, Adrian, and then back to Naomi like he was running some kind of mental chess game. I half expected him to start clapping, like we caught him in a prank show. But no one moved. No one spoke. The candles flickered between us like they knew something we didn't. Adrian stepped forward first. She was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that only happens when rage has frozen over and become something colder, something surgical. She looked right at Naomi and said, "Do you know how many times I asked him if it was you?" Naomi opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I don't even know if she was trying to deny it. She just stared at Adrian, wide-eyed, her mouth a silent O. I watched it all from the side, like I wasn't even there. My heart was thudding in my chest, but it felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. Maybe it did. Maybe I'd left it in the glove compartment of my car an hour ago. Adrian walked past me and dropped a folder onto the coffee table. Hotel receipts. Phone records. Screenshots. You were thorough, she told her husband, her voice flat. But not thorough enough. Levi exhaled sharply, but still didn't speak. Naomi finally found her voice. Elwood, please, I can explain. Explain? I nearly laughed. Like there was some version of this where she accidentally fell into another man's bed again and again and again. I didn't answer her. I walked over to the window and looked out at the ocean. That was what hurt the most. Not the affair, not the lies, not even the humiliation. It was the fact that this place, this view, this house I bought for us, was now contaminated. Nothing was real anymore. Not the vacations we imagined. Not the porch swings. Not the breakfast on the balcony. It was all a setup, the stage where she played out her fantasy, while I played the fool. Adrienne's phone buzzed. She checked it, smiled slightly, and said, "They're almost here." Naomi blinked. Who? Adrian looked at her like she was slow. Your parents. You invited them here to meet Levi today, didn't you? You told them you were bringing your business partner to the house for lunch. Naomi turned white. No, you didn't. I did, Adrian said. They should be pulling into the driveway in about 7 minutes. And that was when Naomi finally collapsed onto the couch. Because the secret was no longer between the 4 of us. It was about to become a family affair. You ever watch someone realize their whole illusion is crumbling in real time? I mean really watch them. As the mask slips, as the breath shortens, as they mentally scramble for exits that don't exist. That was Naomi on that couch, hands shaking, pupils dilated, and the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, like her soul had already packed its bags and left her there alone. Levi finally opened his mouth, and I wish he hadn't. Okay, let's all calm down. We don't need to make a scene. Adrian laughed. One short, sharp burst like glass cracking under pressure. A scene? You're standing in the middle of a house you cheated in, Levi. What do you think this is, a rehearsal dinner? Naomi buried her face in her hands. Her voice came out muffled. I didn't want it to go this far. But it did go that far. It went so far, it looped around and ended up at my doorstep in the form of anonymous tips and late-night text messages. That's how Adrian and I found each other in the first place, through pain, through their clumsiness, through mutual destruction disguised as curiosity. She messaged me after finding Naomi's earrings in her husband's car. I called her after finding Levi's cologne on our pillow. We were strangers who became detectives, then reluctant allies, and now co-conspirators. Adrian sat down across from Naomi, crossing one leg over the other like she was in a job interview. You know what's funny? She said softly. This place has all these beautiful glass windows, so much light, so much transparency. And yet, you both still thought you could hide in here like ghosts. Naomi looked like she was going to be sick. I was still at the window, staring out at the road. Sure enough, 2 cars were coming down the gravel path. One was Naomi's parents. The other, I didn't recognize. Adrian noticed it too. Wait, she said, narrowing her eyes. Who's that? Levi walked over beside me. That's not my car. I turned to him slowly. She invited someone else? Adrian stood up, stiff and alert. No, I invited someone else. Everyone turned to her. And that's when she said it. Calm, unapologetic, and terrifying. Levi, meet your son. He blinked. What? You have a son. He's 16. His name's Carter. You met him once. At a fundraiser. You didn't recognize him then. You will now? Naomi's jaw dropped. What are you talking about? Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's just say, I've had time to plan this, too. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was a reckoning, and I had no idea how deep it went. The doorbell rang, and time seemed to warp. No one moved at first. Naomi stared blankly at Adrian, like she had spoken in code. Levi looked like someone just punched a hole through the center of his brain. And me? I kept watching the cars outside, one of which now held a 16-year-old kid Levi apparently fathered and forgot. Adrian didn't flinch. She walked to the door with the poise of a queen hosting a royal disaster. The moment she opened it, I heard footsteps. Hesitant, slow, too light to be a grown man's. Then I saw him. The boy stepped inside. Tall, lean, nervous. A hoodie with the sleeves tugged down over clenched fists. And those eyes, brown, sharp, and defensive. Not unsure like a stranger's, not trusting like a guest's. Eyes that scanned a room the same way Levi just had seconds before. Calculating. Dissecting. Cold. That was the echo. Carter didn't look like a scared teenager. He looked like someone who already knew this wasn't just a family reunion. It was an ambush. He barely glanced at Adrian. He was staring at Levi now, his brow slightly furrowed. Like he already suspected what was coming. Naomi whispered, "Oh my God." Levi's voice was barely audible. "Adrian, what is this? What the hell is this?" She didn't answer right away. She knelt beside Carter, adjusted the hood off his head, and said softly, "This is the child you tried to forget. I just thought it was time for him to meet the man who helped ruin everything." Carter stayed silent. I expected tears, screaming, some emotional explosion from Levi. But instead, he took a step back, slow, mechanical, and ran both hands down his face like he was trying to scrub off the situation. "This is insane," he muttered. "This is crazy." Naomi finally stood up. "Wait, Adrian, are you saying that he never knew about him? You kept this from him for 16 years? Adrian straightened. "I told him. Once. The day I found out about your affair. He said I was trying to trap him. Said I was unstable. I was 8 weeks pregnant." Naomi gasped. "You never told me that." Adrian turned to her slowly. "You weren't exactly listening, Naomi. You were too busy texting my husband from your gym locker." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loud with tension, crawling up the walls of the house like vines. The candle flames wavered again, casting wild shadows across faces that had no idea who they even were to each other anymore. I hadn't spoken in nearly 10 minutes. I was just absorbing, watching Naomi squirm under truths she wasn't prepared to hear, watching Levi stand in front of a son he never claimed, watching Adrian orchestrate it all with a surgeon's cold precision. And Carter? He was still staring at Levi. Then, out of nowhere, he said quietly, "So you're the one?" Levi opened his mouth to speak, but didn't manage a word. Carter's voice was low, deliberate. "The one who destroyed my mom and pretended I didn't exist?" Adrian looked down, eyes glistening now. And Levi, this man who had swaggered through my life like a virus, looked small. For the first time, he looked genuinely shaken. Not angry, not defensive, just lost. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to God, I didn't know." Carter tilted his head slightly. "But you believe it now, don't you?" And for a split second, Levi nodded. But the moment was shattered when Naomi screamed, "What the hell is happening? This was supposed to be our weekend." That's when everyone turned to her. And I swear, for the first time since the truth exploded across the floor like shrapnel, I saw what I had married. Not the woman I fell in love with, not the wife I built a life with, but a stranger in a house that never really belonged to either of us. Naomi's scream hung in the air like gunpowder after a shot, loud, disorienting, and far too late. Everyone flinched, even Carter. She looked like someone who had been robbed, but the only thing missing from her life now was the lie she thought she still controlled. "Our weekend," Adrian repeated, her voice slicing through the tension like ice cracking underfoot. "That's what you're upset about? Not the betrayal? Not the child your affair partner left behind like trash on the side of the road? You're mad because your romantic getaway got spoiled?" Naomi's lip trembled. "You had no right." Adrian stepped toward her. "He had no right, Naomi. You were just a willing accessory. Don't you dare talk to me about rights." Naomi stumbled back like the words had slapped her. She turned to me, desperate now, like I was her last life raft in a storm she started herself. "Elwood, please, say something. You're just standing there." I finally met her eyes. For a second, I almost forgot who I was looking at. She looked different, smaller, her arrogance stripped away like peeling paint. "What do you want me to say?" I asked quietly. "That I forgive you, that this is fine, that I'm proud of you for picking the most predictable man in the room to blow up our marriage with?" Her mouth opened, but I didn't let her answer. "You came here with Levi to play house in the beach home I worked my hands numb to pay for. You thought you could erase me with wine glasses and sunlit mornings, and now you're angry because you couldn't hide it forever?" I shook my head, my voice cracking for the first time. "This house was supposed to be our future, but you turned it into evidence." The room was so quiet, I could hear the seagulls outside. Adrian sat back down, rubbing her temples, finally starting to look tired. Carter stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, eyes darting between all of us, absorbing everything like a dry sponge dropped in water. And Levi? He was pacing now, uneven steps, one hand in his hair, the other clenched at his side. "All right, enough," he muttered. "I get it. I'm the villain. I destroyed everything. But what do you want from me? Blood? Do you want me to drop to my knees in front of my kid and confess every mistake I ever made? Fine. You win. I'm garbage. Say it. Say it out loud if it makes you feel better." No one did. Because the moment he started unraveling, it wasn't satisfying anymore. It was just pathetic. A man unraveling in the middle of his own affair like a magician caught palming cards. His tricks didn't work now. We'd all seen behind the curtain. But Carter stepped forward, not to hug him, not to hit him, but to look at him. He stood only a foot away from Levi and said, "You don't even know my birthday." Levi's breath caught. "You knew the name of every hotel you took her to, every bottle of wine you liked, every cheap trick to hide what you were doing. But you never once Googled the kid you helped bring into this world." Adrian covered her mouth, but I still saw the tears slip down. Naomi whispered, "Stop. Please, stop. This isn't fair." But Carter wasn't done. "You never wondered why your wife stopped trusting you, why she stopped sleeping in the same bed. You thought it was her. It was you. It's always been you. You infected everything." Levi sat down, hard, like his legs finally gave up pretending they could carry the weight. Naomi tried to reach for me again. "Elwood, please, what happens now?" I stared at her hand, then looked away. "I don't know," I said. Because I didn't. Not yet. But the tide had already come in, and it wasn't going back out until everything buried was washed clean. We didn't talk for what felt like hours, though it must have only been minutes. Everyone just sat. Levi hunched forward on the edge of the couch like a broken puppet, staring at the floor. Naomi was curled up in the corner of the room with her knees pressed to her chest like a child caught stealing. Adrian had moved to the kitchen, silently pouring herself a glass of water with hands that were visibly trembling now that the adrenaline had worn off. Carter stood near the sliding doors, staring out at the ocean like he could somehow step into it and disappear. I was the only one still standing. There's something surreal about watching everything you built, every lie you ignored, every compromise you made in silence, burn right in front of you, and knowing you can't do anything to stop it because you're the one who poured the gasoline years ago. I hadn't spoken since I told Naomi this house had become evidence. And even now, I wasn't sure I had anything left to say. But then Adrian broke the silence. "I'm filing tomorrow," she said softly, not looking at Levi. "You'll get the paperwork before noon. Carter and I are done living in your shadow." Levi didn't respond. He didn't even look up. Carter didn't either. He kept staring at the sea. Naomi turned sharply toward her. "You're not even going to try counseling? You're just going to end it in one sentence?" Adrienne's eyes narrowed. "Counseling? After 2 years of being lied to? After raising a kid alone while he played secret boyfriend in hotel rooms with you? You think this is sudden? Naomi, this is late." Naomi shot up from the couch. "You're not perfect, Adrian. Don't stand there and pretend you didn't keep things from him too. You hid your son from him for 16 years. "I protected my son from him," Adrian snapped back. "Big difference." And that's when Carter finally turned around. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. But when he spoke, it was like the room tilted toward him. "Stop talking about me like I'm not here." The women both fell silent. "I didn't come here to be a weapon. I came because I needed to see for myself what kind of man he was," Carter said, pointing to Levi. "And now I know. I'm not here to be your proof or your project. I'm not part of your revenge. I'm just me." Adrienne's face crumpled. "Carter, I didn't mean to." He raised his hand, stopping her. "I know, but it still hurts." That landed like a brick. And for the first time since all of this started, Naomi looked at me. Really looked. Like she saw what she'd done. Like it had finally settled in. This wasn't just a messy breakup or an awkward discovery. This was the end of everything that once held any warmth. She stepped toward me, slowly, cautiously, as if hoping I'd become the soft place to land. "Elwood," she said, her voice shaky, "I made a mistake. A huge one. But we were broken long before Levi. You know that." And I almost laughed. Because broken? We weren't broken. She was just bored. And boredom made her reckless. "You didn't try to fix it," I said. "You just threw it away." She reached out, but I backed up. "Don't," I whispered. "Not here. Not in this house." Her hand dropped, and I saw it, the flicker in her eyes. Not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. Not of me. Of being alone. Adrian walked past us, toward the door. "I'm taking Carter home," she said. "You two can figure out whatever circus comes next." As she opened the door, Carter paused beside Levi, not facing him, just standing near him for 1 second longer than he needed to. Then he said it, quiet but clear. "You don't deserve to know me." And with that, they were gone. The door clicked shut, and suddenly, I was alone with the woman I used to love and the man who made sure I could never see her the same way again. But they weren't the same either. None of us were. And the ocean outside just kept on crashing, like it had been waiting for this all along. The silence left behind by Adrian and Carter didn't feel like peace. It felt like fallout. Like the ringing in your ears after an explosion, when you're still trying to figure out if all your limbs are attached. The front door had barely closed, and yet the house already felt heavier, smaller. Like the oxygen had thickened, and we were all choking on it in different ways. Levi was slumped on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring blankly at the floor. He looked nothing like the man I'd seen in that garage camera footage, all charm and arrogance, a swagger in his step as he pressed his lips to my wife's neck. No, this was someone else entirely. Someone hollowed out. Someone who just realized he wasn't untouchable. That action's echo. Naomi sat cross-legged on the rug now, her hands in her lap, head down. She hadn't said a word since Adrian left. She just rocked slightly, like her body was trying to self-soothe through the unraveling. The woman who used to own every room with her voice, reduced to silence. And not the kind that asks for pity. The kind that happens when you know there's nothing left to say that won't make it worse. I stayed near the fireplace, my hands resting on the cold stone mantel. My thoughts weren't coherent anymore. They scattered and tangled like seaweed in the surf. Rage would surge, and then retreat just as quickly into exhaustion. Pain came in waves, but not from betrayal anymore. It was from clarity, the kind you get only when all the distractions have burned away. Finally, Levi spoke. "You were right," he muttered, voice hoarse. "This house is ruined. I can feel it. It's poisoned." Naomi looked up, startled by the sound of his voice. I turned around. "It's not the house that's poisoned," I said. "It's the people who walked into it with lies in their mouths and keys that didn't belong to them." He nodded, slowly, like he wasn't even arguing. "I don't know how to fix any of this." "You don't," I said flatly. "That's the point." Naomi shifted, her voice cracking. "Elwood, I need to ask you something." I didn't stop her, but I didn't encourage her either. She took a shaky breath. "Is there any version of this where we try again? I mean, not right now, but later? After everything settles?" I stared at her for a long time. And then, as calmly as I could manage, I said, "You brought another man to a place I built for us. You toasted wine with him under our lights. You looked at him the way you used to look at me before I started becoming invisible in my own marriage." Her eyes filled instantly, but I didn't stop. "I begged you, Naomi. Begged you, with my silences, my patience, my loyalty, to just look at me, to notice when I was hurting, to care. And you called it clingy. You said I was smothering you." She covered her mouth like she'd been slapped. Levi stood suddenly, pushing both hands into his hair. "I have to go," he said, voice cracking. "I can't be here." Naomi looked at him, shocked. "You're leaving?" He nodded, not even looking back. "I don't think I was ever really here." And just like that, he walked out the door. No apology, no closure, no redemption arc. Just a quiet exit, leaving the wreckage behind for someone else to clean up. Naomi turned to me, eyes wide. "He left me." I didn't flinch. "So did I," I whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks, but she didn't move toward me this time. Maybe she finally understood that I wasn't bluffing, that she hadn't just lost a lover, but a witness. The only person who ever saw her at her worst and still chose to stay, until now. I walked upstairs. I didn't pack. I didn't slam doors. I just grabbed the photo off the nightstand, the one of us on move-in day, smiling like the future owed us something, and I tucked it face down into a drawer. When I came back down, Naomi was still on the rug, still crying, but I didn't comfort her. I opened the door, stepped into the salt-stained wind, and left the keys on the table. It's been 6 weeks since I walked out of that house. 6 weeks since I heard the ocean crash against the walls of the beach home I used to think meant forever. 6 weeks since I watched Naomi cry on a floor that once held laughter. 6 weeks since I saw Levi's face pale under the weight of a truth he spent years pretending didn't exist. 6 weeks since Adrian and Carter walked out into the sun and didn't look back. And in those 6 weeks, something strange happened. I started breathing again. At first, it felt unnatural, like I was doing it wrong. Pulling in air too sharply, holding it too long, forgetting how to let go. I was used to being half full. I was used to shrinking. I was used to waiting for the next betrayal like it was part of my morning routine. But then, the silence became comforting. The space around me started to feel wider, like I had room to rebuild. I rented a small apartment 2 towns over, nothing fancy. Just a place with warm light, creaky floors, and no ghosts. I got rid of the shared furniture, boxed up the wedding photos, donated the wine glasses. I even bought a new mug. One with a chipped handle and the words, "Let it be," printed in faded blue script. And you know what? I drink from that mug every morning now. Not because I believe in mantras, but because I believe in reminders. Naomi sent a letter. Handwritten. 6 pages. No begging. No excuses. Just a long, honest, ugly reflection. She said she doesn't expect forgiveness. Just understanding. She said she lost the best version of herself before she ever cheated. And she only realized that after she lost the one person who truly saw her. I haven't responded. I don't know if I ever will. But I appreciate that she didn't pretend it didn't matter. Adrian and Carter? They're doing well. I check in every now and then. Not often, just enough. She's calmer now. He's got therapy lined up. They go hiking on weekends. I saw a photo of them last week. He was smiling, really smiling. And for once, Adrian wasn't wearing armor. Just sunglasses and peace. And me? I'm not in love. Not dating. Not rushing. But yesterday, I sat on a bench near the water. Not that beach, a different one. And I watched a golden retriever chase foam across the tide, while its owner laughed like he didn't have a single worry in the world. And I smiled. Not because everything made sense, but because for the first time in years, it didn't have to. Sometimes the people you love break you. Sometimes they teach you how not to love yourself. Sometimes they steal your future and rewrite it without your permission. But if you're lucky, really lucky, you learn that being broken isn't the end of the story. It's just the end of their chapter, and the beginning of your own.